Hello, and I'm going to read the next part of Napoleon and Josephine, the biography of a marriage. I'm on part 5, Charles. If you have my copy, I'm on page 117. Charles something or somebody, Charles, shadowy figure, an unknown, a phantom, um, a monster X. Apparently it was the later. Apparently a man named Charles, whether this was a first name or a last, whether Charles or Charles Quintin or a Hippolyte Charles, apparently a man in the military service or either the guides, elite guards, or the hussars, a lieutenant or a captain, apparently attached to the army of Italy more than 100 years. It was difficult to identify or to place the man precisely. There was certainly talk enough at the time, contemporary gossip, which would be preserved in black and white through 19th and 20th century printing presses. But historians were to find later that the dossier of the officer named Charles was missing from the archives of the War Ministry, and so little actual fact could be established about him that some biographers regulated the whole story to the realm of myth and malice. Charles something or somebody Charles, explained Meneville, who became Napoleon's private secretary in 1802. With that insignificant, enigmatic name of his, he seemed to belong to legend rather than to reality. A shadowy figure, unknown, a phantom, Monsieur X. If Napoleon's secretary did not believe in Monsieur Charles, General Junot's wife surely did, mentioning him pointedly and repeatedly in her memoirs as a dear friend of Josephina's and a good friend of General Junot, a quaintly historical character whose obscure name was linked with a great one. She says of him, adding, "It is curious how the life trajectory of a virtual unknown in a crossing that of a luminary can be at that point caught up in the glare of history, and shining originality only in the reflective glory, eventually give off a light of its own, by which the central figure is clarified. Only in recent years, however, had enough light been shed on the figure of the romantic traveler himself to confirm his identity officially and positively. In the 1950s, the researchers of the French historian Louis Pastel in the day-by-day records of the Army of Italy established beyond a doubt that in the spring of 1796 at Paris, the life trajectory of Lieutenant Hippolyte Charles of the 1st Regiment of Hussars, born 24 years earlier near Island in southern France, did indeed meet that of his new wife, of his new commander-in-chief. Lieutenant Charles was utterly charming, Lord Junot thought, elegant in his person, dashing in his royal uniform, resplendent with the gold braid. If he if he was the wolf in the fold, he was a gallant little wolf, and the shepherd himself had opened the gate. Lieutenant Charles owed his entry to the house on the Rue de la Victoria to his good friend, adjacent General Leclerc, whom he himself served as adjutant. And Leclerc was, in turn, the good friend of General Bonaparte, with whom he had served at Toulouse 2 years previously, and whom he now planned to join in Italy. Charles and Leclerc had come up together from Marseilles on April 19th, and gone together immediately to pay their respects to Josephina, and to bring her news and messages from the Bonaparte family, then living in that southern seaport city. Napoleon's superstition, or in, in, intuition, his faith in his presenta- uh, presentment, his dire premonitions seem to have been justified. Charles had been introduced to Josephina on April 20th or 21st, and within the next week Napoleon was writing, "There is no one else, no one but me, is there? I am not jealous, but sometimes anxious. I have the feeling that you have made a choice, and that you know to whom you will turn to replace me." He had cause for anxiety. In May, Josephina wrote a breathless little note to Talleyrand, inviting him to meet her new protege, the latest addition to a social gathering. "You will be wild about him. Madame Reclaimer, Talent, and Hamlin have all lost their heads over him. He is so handsome, and such taste. He is so superiorly accounted. I am convinced that no man has ever before known how to average, average a cravat. I shall present him to you. You will hear him talk, and he will give you ideas. He astonished even Madame Desperaux, a reference to the moderate Madame Desperaux, the fashion authority of the fashion capital. It was not Madame Hamelin, another Creole member of the director, directoire, smart set, who had lost her head over the hustler Charles, but Madame Bonaparte. At least that was how Monsieur uh, Hamelin saw it, and saw Charles as the new favorite in her salon, enjoying a decided preference on a part of the hostess, a signal favor which she did not adequately dissimulate. This hyperlow Charles was the captain, attached to the general staff of the army of Italy, a small man with a charming face and a knack for puns and jiggles, at which she laughed until she cried, never forgetting, however, to put her handkerchief to her lips to conceal her dreadful teeth. Ew. Hamelin was always resentful of the fact that although Madame Bonaparte mostly kindly arranged for him to traffic in army contacts in Italy, he would never manage to make a success of it in other worlds. Hamelin is spiteful and malicious, but not a liar as concerns either Charles' favor with the hostess or the hostess's bad teeth. The latter fact is corroborated by Madame de Remusat, among others. Her very small mouth artfully concealed her bad teeth. Josephine had long and carefully consulted a mirror to make certain that her sweetest smile revealed no trace of this less attractive feature. Charles' height, or lack of it, was his only point of similarity with Napoleon. Impossible to find a dollar more amusing fellow than Charles, Lloyd Janot said. Playwright Arnault partly agreed. The gayest, most even disposition, delightful companion, all of the things Napoleon was not, all the things Josephina missed in a husband. She, whose element with society, the principal distraction of her elegance, had as husband the most unsociable of creatures, never then or later at his ease in a small crowd or among strangers whose text voice preoccupied. For small talk, which was her forte, and trials, Napoleon had neither talent nor inclination. When he talked, it was with servants or with generals, diplomats, jurists, scientists. He never conversed. He, of course, was a brilliant monologue. As a music, Madame de Rousseff could appreciate. On the topics of war, mathematics, politics, philosophy, where Charles Hunt's heirs or cracked jokes from the latest stage successors, Josephina's husband recited verses from the melancholy Ocellarum, or the more lugubrious passages from Rashid. Charles was the life of the party, Madame Judgment said. Napoleon, the un, unamusable, as Talleyrand called him, to his face as well as behind his back. When Napoleon was roused to open mirth, which was seldom, said Lord Junot, his laughter had the disconcerting sound of the ventriloquist's dummy. Charles was, by instinct and predict, prediction, a ladies' man, fastidious in his dress, a dainty in his tasseled red leather boots, with his silver embroidered red fox trimmed cape flying jauntily over the left shoulder, in contrast to a General Bonaparte who was neglect, negligent in his dress, almost obliviously to what he wore, affecting the simplest guide uniform in the midst of his flamboyantly arrayed staff. Above all, Charles had been a grift suitor, an experienced, skillful, considerate, rewarding lover, which Napoleon never was, despite a record of being endless, explosive, more expensive than that of his military one. Napoleon's sexual pro- proclivities were prestigious, but women were constantly dismayed at his approach, or rather, his lack of it, at his tactics in love or in passion, which were anything but enduring, and awestruck Stanhill hailed him as the successor after all these centuries to Caesar and to Alexandra, but not to Casanova, not to Don Duane, Hall when he was still Henry Ballet, and in the diplomatic services met General Bonaparte in Italy in 1796 and came to admire him lavishly as a born warrior, but not as a born lover. The Emperor, Stahlhelm wrote, referring to a later period, the Empire, usually seated at a small table, his sword at his side, would be signing his endless degrees. When a lady was announced, he would request her, without looking up from his work table, to go and wait for him in bed. Later, with a candlestick in his hand, he would show her of the bedroom, and then promptly go back to his table to continue reading, correcting and signing those endless decrees. The essential part of the ravenous uh, rendezvous had not lasted 3 minutes. To dismiss these gallant visitors after a mere 3 minutes of his time to go on signing decrees, and often without so much as unbuckling his sword, stu- struck these ladies as an outrageous procedure. Allowing for some slight exaggeration on Stellhall's part, the declination is basically accurate. As others of Napoleon's male inmates and several of his mistresses confirmed, Frederick Mason, Napoleon's distinguished and reverent biographer, con- concepts the emperor's relations with women to have been brutally abrupt, with no waste of time on preliminaries. Mason interprets this as another reflection of the emperor's inherent timidity with women. This was the man who described his youthful approach to prostitutes as an invaluable herald by the question, "Would you be so kind to tell me the story of how you lost your virginity?" The answer to this ritual query served to reassure the 18-year-old officer of the woman's accessibility to his fumbling advances. As St. Helena, in the years of endless reminiscence and introspection, Napoleon analyzes himself to General Gregora, Gregora to the effect of that sexuality. He was instantly stimulated in the proximity of the pretty and agreeable woman. Agreeable in his use of the word, meaning compliant, and that the lady's role in the proceedings was concluded in the very minimum of time. Certain findings in the autopsy report issued at St. Helena are cited in proof of Napoleon's deficiency as a lover, and as a substitution of physiologically weakness. But modern medical opinion would construe his haste in lovemaking as having been due to psychological rather than physiological causes, to timidity and indifference to a partner's pleasure. It is, to be sure, unlikely that Napoleon showed himself such as peremptory and indifferent lover with a woman he so loved as he did Josephine. His letters to her in reminiscence and in evocation of their embraces are evident to the contrary. She had surely taught him a tenderer communion, although, even under gentler and deft offices, he could not have entirely altered his basic pattern. A, court, a courtesan's role is to stimulate pleasure she may not generally share. But Josephina was more than that. She was so generally tender, so sensitive to the sensibilities of others, that it is unlikely that she would have ever wounded his pride by allowing him to guess that she did not enjoy his embrace. Yet neither did she choose to go to Italy to receive it. Here again she was reluctant to show herself unkind by disappointing him. But apparently she could not, at this point, control her own heart and keeping it from turning to Charles. Apparently she was moved by love, as she had not as she had never been before, not even by Hoshio. Barris's opinion notwithstanding, to the point now of a rashness quite unlike her, a total disregard of her own best interests. To avoid hurting her husband, she may have resorted to a plea of illness, pregnancy, even a miscarriage. A month after the capture of Milan, she was under pressure not only from her husband, but also from the directors, now fearful that their temperamental um, military genius might carry out his threat to desert the battlefield for the bedside of his ailing wife. General Monax had been obliged to return to his post in Italy without Madame Bonaparte, despite his commanding general's orders to the contrary, and Colonel Jarnac was still waiting in Paris to escort her across the Alps, but growing restive at her postponement. General Leclerc and Charles had received their official announcement to the Army of Italy on May 5th and had entered a request with the War Ministry for 4 horses for the journey. But Leclerc set out alone in May. It could only have been an especial favor to his commander's wife that Leclerc permitted his adjutant to linger on in Paris and to join Madame Bonaparte's ca- cavalcade as her special cav- cavalcade in addition to the cavalry detachment assigned her as a protection against the barbets, bandits who had harassed the Alpine roads. Barras sent word to his fiery, touchy Bonaparte that the month of June would not pass without his wife's departure. Honor comments. Her distress was acute when she saw that she had exhausted her last excuse, thinking of what she was leaving behind rather than what she had before her. She would gladly have forgotten the palace prepared for her reception in Milan, would have forgone all the palaces in the world for the sake of a little house on the Rue Chamberlain. By June, she was last making preparations for the journey, assembling an elaborate trousseau to judge by Hamlin's report that she borrowed 200 gold louis from him for her purchases, plus an additional 30 louis for a cobwebby English lace scarf, and considered herself adequate of the debt in having arranged for his transportation in her suit across the Alps. During those weeks of June, she also commissioned the most fashionable of Paris de- deco- decorateurs to refurbish her house. In June, too, she prepared her children for the party, treating them to a trip to Fontainebleau on the occasion of a family wedding, perhaps in consolation for their having missed her own. The bride this time was none other than Aunt Annie Renard, and the groom the Italian Marquis de Bonapartes. These two were exchanging the enduring bond of a 40-year-old elusive legion for the tenuous one of holy matrimony. On June 25th, Director Barr honored Madame Bonaparte at a farewell dinner party at the Luxembourg, and it was from there that she made her departure, Arnaud recalls. In leaving, she gave me fresh proof of her kindness, promising to intercede with her husband to procure a post with the army of Italy for my brother. In this instance, she kept her word, and this deserves special mention, since not always able to shake off that Creole indolence of hers, even when most eager to do a favor, she was apt to forget her promises as easily as she made them. Bobby, can you turn that down, please? Just turn it down, because they're yelling. Poor woman. She burst into tears that night when the other guests accompanied her to her waiting carnage in the courtyard, and when Barras helped her in, she sobbed as if she was going to the torture chamber, whereas she was going to Italy to reign as a souvenir. I don't know how to pronounce these words. On June 24th, the Directory had issued orders for the passports to be delivered for the citizens Josephine Lanquire, wife of General Bonaparte, for her maid Louise Connapoint, and two manservants for General Junot and Joseph Bonaparte, for financially Hamlin in fulfillment of Josephina's promise, and of course for citizen Hippolyte Charles, assistant to Adjutant General Leclerc of the Army of Italy, who would ride in the Madame Bonaparte carnage with her, with Junot and with Joseph. The fifth occupant, be quiet.
You actually cried 4 times.
Okay.
Not 3 times.
Alright. The fifth occupant had no passport, but was unidentifiable by a silver plate affixed between the silver bells on his pretty leather collar, reading, "I belong to Madame Bonaparte." This was Fortune, the pug, the only rival to as yet acknowledged by Napoleon, or known by him to be riding in his wife's carriage. Although Napoleon may have been warned by another of his dire premonitions, Director Carnot had sent him a message on June 22nd that Madame Bonaparte, though still not completely recovered from her illness, will set out in June 26th. On that very date, before Carnot's message could have reached him, Napoleon wrote Josephine from Tuscany, so addressing her as the Rue Chanteline, a letter in which, for the first time, a note of serious mistrust and suspicion, of sarcasm and of irony, crept in between the lines of his customary ram socializing. In a month, I have received only 2 notes. I hate that. Alright. Alright. In a month, I have received only 2 notes of 3 lines, each from my sweetheart. There are other matters claiming her attention. Is not that of writing to her husband a claim upon her? That of thinking of him, at least, not to think of Josephina for her husband. That would mean death, denial of the very existence. Your image embellishes my thought, brightens my dark and sinister face of melancholy and of sorrow. A day, perhaps, will come when I shall see you. Well then, on that day I will show you my pocket stuffed full of letters which were too foolish to send. Yes, that's the word of it, foolish. Good God, tell me, you who know me so well, to inspire love in others, hearts without feeling it in your own, would you know how one cures oneself of love? I would pay a handsome price for such a remedy. You were supposed to have left on the 5th parallel, June 30th, a fool that I was. I was expecting you on the 13th, June 7th. As a pretty woman could be expected to abandon her pleasant way of life, to run off and leave her friends, her Madame Talent, her dinner at Barre's, her first night theatrical performances, for fortune. No, not even her fortune she could give up. You love them all better than you do your husband. For him you have only a mild esteem. He can claim only a share of sweet goods, will of which your heart is a wellspring. Recapitalizing your faults, your frailties, I flagellate myself in an effort to stop loving you. Bah! I wind up loving you all the more. In brief, my incomparable little darling, I shall let you in on my secrets. Make mock of me. Stay on in Paris. Take lovers. Let all of the world know it. Never write to me, and then I shall love you 10 times more than I did before. If that is not folly, fever, delirium. Okay, Bobby, can you please watch your movie?
No.
Don't do that. You're gonna hurt my computer. Please stop. Please stop and reading. What is more, I shall never recover from it. But if by chance I should. But don't go on telling me that you are ill. Don't go on trying to justify yourself. Good God, you are forgiven. I love you to distraction. Never will my poor heart cease to give you all of its love. If you shall not love me, my fate would be indeed bizarre. If you have not written to me, so you were ill. So you have not come. So the directory have not posed your coming. And then there was your malady.
What?
Your malady. And then the baby that stirred so strong within you.
Party.
To make you ill. But now you have passed beyond the lions. You will be in Turin by the 10th, June 4th. On the 12th, at Milan, where you will be await my coming. You will be in Italy, but I will still be far away from you. Don't go that way. Go this way. Go this way. Go this way.
No.
Yes.
That way.
See?
This way.
Go. You will be in Italy, but I will still be far away from you. Adieu, my beloved. A kiss upon your mouth, another upon your heart, another upon your little...
Going back this way.
Come on, hurry, Bobby.
Yeah.
We have made peace with Rome, which brings us money. I will be tomorrow at Leghorn, and as soon as I can be in your arms, at your feet, upon your breast. And that is...
So, make sure to subscribe.
Yeah, make sure this, and that is it for
Down below.
Hold on, I'm still talking. For chapter 1 of the part with Charles.
Yep.
And
before I say goodbye to
subscribe down below, comment down below if you like this book. What did you learn about this book? In this chapter. And if you like it, if you like this video, click a thumbs up. But I post videos every Monday and Friday. And have a great rest of the day.
So,
say bye.
This.
Say bye.
Bye. Say goodbye to